The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local journalism today at chly.ca/donate. Local news doesn't survive without local support.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. The Hub, a drop-in center for people experiencing homelessness in Nanaimo, is set to close at the end of the month. Located on Nicol Street, it opened in January of last year. During the day, Island Crisis Care Society runs a drop-in center in the building where people can sit inside, use a bathroom, and connect with various service providers. At night, the space transitions to a 20-bed shelter run by Nanaimo Family Life Association. The daytime hub is funded in part by the City of Nanaimo. Last summer, City Council voted to continue funding the hub only until the end of March, following concerns presented by residents of the neighbourhood surrounding the hub, who spoke of an increase in street disorder that they attributed to the facility being in the area. Today on the program, we'll hear from operators of the day and nighttime services offered by the hub, people who use the service, residents of the surrounding area, and the mayor of Nanaimo. On Monday, Midcoast Morning paid a visit to the hub and spoke with Drop-In Center Program Manager Lisa Clausen.
Well, I feel extremely horrible. I've been here since day one. I scrubbed the walls before we opened, right? And I've really gotten to know a lot of people, right? And they're not going to do well. Like, it breaks my heart because it's like, what's going to happen to them? A lot of them don't go into other places, but because now they've gotten used to our team and the people that we are, and we're strict and sturdy, and we have rules and we make sure we follow them, but we're loving and caring and compassionate, and they can come and just talk to us if they're having a bad day, and we can help them feel better, right? So it's really hard on all the staff is just devastated, right? Because you get to know all these folks. So one of the hard parts here is the shelter at nighttime. Like when we close at 4, the shelter comes in at 4:30 to set up, and they open at 5. So there's like an hour closure on either side. During that hour, when all the folks that are waiting to come into the shelter are lined up on the street, you have all these people that are starting to come by with airsoft rifles, shooting them, throwing frozen eggs at them, throwing a full jug of milk, frozen bagels, like anything that they can. And unfortunately, I think it's teenagers, like high school, they've started some kind of something. But I mean, people are getting hurt, right? It's like horrible. So that's not a good, like being on a highway is not ideal. And we knew last August-ish that the city said they wouldn't fund this location because we're funded by United Way and the city of Nanaimo. And council said they wouldn't fund us in this location because the South End community feels they have enough, right? So we've been looking like crazy at everything and anything that we can to try to find something that will just work good enough even until we can find a better one. And we've had absolutely no luck. So we've also gone back to council and just begged, can you just give us some extra funding to stay till we find something? We're really desperately looking, right? And no, it's closing.
So at the end of the month, it's just things will shut down one day and then that's it? There's no kind of transition plan or anything?
There's nothing. We have no funding from the city, so we didn't find another location. There's no other programs. Stone Soup is closed now. The Salvation Army isn't fully up and running yet. There's no food. But there's no bathrooms, right? Like our bathrooms are non-stop busy, right? When you're on drugs, you don't go to the bathroom for a long time, and then you have what's called a heroin dump, which looks like a horse, you know what I mean? But they're going to be squatting outside for half an hour doing that. Like, that's humiliating, but they have nowhere else to go. You can't go into a business. I understand, I understand the whole angle. I'm also a homeowner, so I understand all of that, but there's got to be somewhere that's for this place so that we can help people. Because nobody else is helping them. Like, what's going to happen to them, right? I might fill my trunk full of food on my own time and come and serve people, but I don't have a bathroom in my car, right? But that would be personally on my own, not through ICCS, right? I was laid off. First time in my life I got a layoff. It sucks, right? But I was going to go down with the ship because I started with the ship, and I don't want to leave it to somebody else to finish off, right? So,
what do you think is going to happen in the area with no hub?
So what if you were there, if you were on the street and this is what happened, what would you do? You would try to make something as safe as possible that you could stay. So you'd all build a tent city. So I just think the tent city is going to come back. There's a lot of people. And one of the really sad ones is that most of them are over 50, right? Like over half of the people in here are 50, 60, 70, walkers. I had a lady with one leg on a wheelchair, right? Like, I mean, they're people that are on disability that can't afford to find a place, so they become homeless. And then when you're homeless, you learn how to live on the streets, which is using some type of substance so that you can sleep, because otherwise you can't sleep. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really horrible for Nanaimo. I think Nanaimo needed to plan better, right?
Lisa Clausen is program manager of the Drop-In Center at the Hub on Nicol Street. Midcoast Morning also spoke with Henry, who uses the services at the Hub. When you heard that the Hub was going to close, what was your reaction?
I couldn't believe myself, because the Hub is like one of the go-to places for homeless people, and without the Hub we have no shelter, we have no source of food, anything like a warm place when it's weather like this outside raining. We're going to be devastated when it's closed.
Can you tell me about how you first found out about the Hub when it opened and what it was like coming here?
I was here the first day that it opened up, and it was relieving that I had a place to go, get out of the cold weather, the rain, and a place dry to sleep at night. I've been homeless for 20 years, and this place has helped me out a lot.
Could you tell us about how, like, some of what goes on here, what difference this place has made for you in the year it's been open?
During the day they have the Hub's open from 9 till 4 p.m. They give us food. They give us a warm place, dry place to hang out, TV to watch, hot coffee all day long, right? And then at 4 o'clock we leave, and at 5 o'clock we can register to come back and to spend the night, which opens up at 8 until 7 in the morning, right? And we get a supper and a dry, warm bed to sleep in.
How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm devastated that they're closing. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Not a clue, because you can't put a tent up anywhere. Every time you put a tent up, they tell you to take it down.
Have you been able to speak to any social workers, anyone who's been able to help you transition?
No. I've tried. I've been on a waiting list for over a year for housing, and I still have nobody's confirmed anything with me. I've seen people come into the city in 2 weeks, have housing. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Pardon my language, but I just don't understand it.
What do you think is going to happen when it's April and when this place is closed? What do you think the impact is going to be on the area?
Oh, it's going to be pretty traumatic. There's going to be tents everywhere. I'll almost guarantee it.
Is there anything that you would want to be asked in a story about the Hub closing? Is there anything you think it's really important for people to know about this?
The city should lay off the homeless people and give us a place that we can go, right? Like, we need somewhere to go to get dry and warm, have a safe place to go to. Like, without it, I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly don't. It's not going to be good, though.
Can you tell me about the place that the Hub is located, and, like, if there was another building that offered this service in a different part of Nanaimo, like up in the North End or at Bowen Road, what would that be like for you as someone using the service? Are there like other places you have to go around the South End every day, or what is the location of the hub like, and what would it be like in a different space?
The location of the hub doesn't matter. Homeless people will go to the location where they need to. That's a given fact. Like if it was on the north end, people would be there. If it was the south end, people would be there. It just happens to be in the central of the city, so everybody's here.
The program also heard from service user Cece, who was at the hub with her son. What do you think is going to happen when it's April and when the hub is closed?
I think that the people, because they've been here for so long, are still going to be around here because they don't know where else to go. There is nowhere else to go. So they're probably going to have tents. They have to stay warm somehow. And no one wants to help them and feels it's all their fault, but not one person asked to be like this.
If there was another hub that offered the same services, it was in a different building or a different part of town, do you think people would still use it? Would people travel to use it?
Oh yes, I think they would, yes, because they want to be warm, they want to be around their friends and family. Like, I've got both my children out here, and it's not right.
I'm going to have to just sneak into this door.
All three of us were born here in Nanaimo.
I'll be just a second.
I think every city or town or whatever should have looked after their own first. And then maybe they could have helped others. That way it would have been a lot less expensive. And it would have been productive and let us, be where we were used to being. I would love to get back into Bay Street. We lived in Departure Bay, and you don't get a chance. And you're put down because you're homeless. But it's not something anybody wants. It's, they can't help it.
Midcoast Morning is part of our nonprofit newsroom project, supported by listeners like you. Keep this program on the air by funding it today with a monthly sustaining donation at chly.ca/donate. We've got tote bags and shirts if you need an incentive.
Today on the program, we're speaking about the impending closure of The Hub. It's a drop-in center for people experiencing homelessness during the day and a 20-bed shelter at night. Located on Nicol Street, service providers and the City of Nanaimo are currently looking for a new space for the hub after Nanaimo City Council voted last summer to discontinue funding the current location at the end of March. That decision followed calls from nearby residents and the South End Community Association to close the hub, with residents citing increased reports of disorder in the surrounding area. On Friday, CHLY reporter Lauryn Mackenzie spoke with MJ McGarrigle, a resident who lives nearby the hub, and Sydney Robertson, president of the South End Community Association.
MJ, what were your first thoughts on hearing the hub was going to be opening?
We were supportive. So we had someone come knock on our door, and I think she was probably close to tears because we were like, oh, this is fantastic. Tell us we weren't upset. We weren't worried. We were naive, I think. We were given a handout that said it's going to be great. There's going to be no outdoor drama. If there's any problems, we will work with our CMP for the very few problems we expect to have. This is going to be great for your neighborhood. And I just said awesome, glad you're here, And I think over time, we kind of started to be like, woo, maybe they just need time to, iron out the kinks and sort things out. And then it just became apparent, I think, that it's so much more than anyone anticipated. There was no preparation for the what ifs, right? That nobody had kind of said and I think we figured there would be, of course, a plan for drug use and of course a plan for these sort of the things you would expect to see come alongside with it. And by the time we realized that there wasn't a plan, it was kind of too late. It was all in motion.
MJ, so you speak about starting off in a positive mindset. Was there one situation that you saw or had
deal with that just changed that mindset?
Yeah. Yes. I think there were probably two that were really turning points for us. So one of them was there was a woman in like full-blown long-term psychosis who had this delusion that her son was being held in one of our houses. And so she came back night after night after night, just trying to get into houses and yelling and screaming the things she thought were happening to her son, which were pretty awful, and banging on doors. And it just went on night after night after night. And at one point, one of the neighbors, a new neighbor I didn't recognize, took things into his own hands and went out on the street. And I went out to try and intervene, and I realized all of a sudden that I was alone on the street with a guy with a gun, which turned out to be a replica, but my nervous system didn't know that. And it was just kind of, and the cops rolled up and they rolled out again, and it was no big deal. And I was just left reeling, being like, what is happening? And I'm trying to raise a kid with a intact nervous system, and he is just waking up to this kind of like chaos. And this woman, there was no answer for her. Like the police would come and they would arrest her, and then she would be right back the next day. Like we don't have the kind of compassionate care we need for folks who are in this like these states of long-term psychosis. And once you invite them to a neighborhood, they're just here, right? And no one knows what to do other than kind of chase them around, and it's hard on everybody.
Do you remember what month or when that was?
Summer. That was this summer, maybe June, July. Not sure. Yeah. And then the other piece was the dogs, I think. So we've, in the 10 years that we've had a dog in this neighborhood, we've had 0 dog attacks. And then this summer, after the hub opened, we had 2 near attacks, and then our dog got properly attacked and was injured all summer. I was injured in the attack, and then shortly after that, my neighbor was injured by a woman that she had an altercation with around a fire in her rose bushes. And so there's 4 houses on our block, and at one point 50% of the households had physical injuries from violence associated with the folks and the dogs who had come to our neighborhood. And that's hard for anybody to manage, and hard to raise kids in the middle of, right?
Mm-hmm. And do you have young kids?
Yes, an 8-year-old. He was 7 this summer when all this was going on.
Wow. How do you talk to your 7-year-old about this?
I think that's a really great question, because I think it gets to the heart of what happens when there's too much. Because prior to the hub, I was raising a kiddo who was just full of compassion, right? And we would stop anytime, since he was in a stroller, we were stopping and checking on people, and we'd hang out until an ambulance came if an ambulance was needed, and wake people up if they needed it or whatever. And he was really raised to kind of just see, these are your neighbors and they're struggling, and, we do what we can, and a lot of compassion. And after our dog was attacked, and after this woman just kept coming back again and again, in order to kind of protect his sense of safety, we really had to shift how we were talking to him about things. And so it had to become a little bit more of a what are these people going to do to you? You can handle it. And that's not you don't want to be othering people. You don't I had no intention of ever raising a child to kind of us and them, the folks who are struggling in our neighborhood. But when you get to this point where it's continuous fearful experiences over and over and over again, you're just you're just thinking about parenting a nervous system, right? And that just has to look like what it has to look like. And that's a real shame, I think.
So we were about 2 weeks out from the hub closing. How are you guys feeling?
Worried. We absolutely advocated for it to be closed. We asked for it to be closed earlier than the end of March. We tried to support it, along the way, but then we just said, we have to pull the plug. It's just too damaging to our neighborhood. So we asked for it to be closed. Some of what we're hearing now is that we're being blamed a little bit for closing it and for the chaos that's going to come when it's closed. And that really gets my goat, because we've seen such an increase in social disorder since the hub opened. It really has become a magnet to this area. That's not on us for saying it needed to close. The disorder was growing and growing and growing, and there was no end in sight, and nobody had the money and the plan and the way out of it. We're just trying to make the best of a bad situation when we advocated for it to be closed. So there's been, we had a meeting that the city held to talk about the things that they'll be doing to try to, mitigate what's going on during that transition. We're worried that it won't be enough. We have a few suggestions to add to that, but we're really worried that it's going to be a bad summer.
And MJ, how are you feeling now that we're a couple weeks out?
I feel frustrated because I think I'm the kind of person who sees a problem and I want to just turn it around and turn it around and turn it around and figure out what went wrong and how could it be done better. And I feel like I'm maybe bothering people or shouting to the void a little bit, saying okay, what did we learn, right? You ran this really difficult, challenging experience on us in our neighborhood. And so we've learned a lot of things, right? And so who is doing that work of saying okay, this went so pear-shaped that we had to close it. Why? What could have been done differently? What were the fundamental challenges that we couldn't sort out? For me, I think the one hub model is unworkable. I don't know if anyone else thinks that at this point. And so that's a discussion I think that I've been looking for of what have we learned about the model. I've heard council call for another one with better funding so that it wouldn't be like this. And so I'm really asking people have that conversation. What does better look like, right? Define better. What are you going to do about the dogs? Can a hub function without a supervised consumption site attached to it? Does that work anywhere, right? I think those are the types of things that I would feel maybe all we've been through hasn't been a waste if all of that learning is collected and there's some kind of movement next time, because there's next time and it's coming back to our neighborhood again, because it always is. And I think this is the third time that this has been tried in our neighborhood. So we have this collective knowledge amongst people who've lived here, and nobody wants it, I think, right? And nobody wants that conversation, or at least to me, it feels like it. And so I'm just a pain in everyone's ass, because I'm just asking constantly, what have we learned? What's the plan for dogs? What's the plan for, X, Y, Z? And I'm frustrated that it does not feel like those conversations are happening. It's kind of everybody's just moved on. And I get a lot of we've closed it and it's not going to be in your neighborhood, so why are you still asking questions? There's this it's almost you can't conceptualize that we actually care, because we want it to be successful, because we care about these folks, right? Some of them were here and some of them still will be, and I had really high hopes for the people who were accessing the hub,
South End Community Association President Sydney Robertson and South End resident MJ McGarrigle speaking with CHLY reporter Lauryn Mackenzie about the impending closure of the hub, a drop-in centre on Nicol Street for people experiencing homelessness. Erica Gagnon is Director of Shelters and Guest Services with Nanaimo Family Life Association, who run the nighttime shelter at the hub. She's been involved in the search for a new location.
If there is anyone with property that we haven't looked at or we don't know about, please reach out. We will come and look at anything. We've looked at a lot, and it's just not going to be suitable. I mean, as you can see from being in here, this is not a large space. This is the entire space. We can make a lot work. And we will make our best efforts to make any space work to keep people sheltered and give them somewhere to be. It's not very fancy in here. We don't need fancy. But definitely something with some exterior space that people can go out to where they're not right on the road, I think would be my number one priority for a new space.
Erica Gagnon is Director of Shelters and Guest Services with Nanaimo Family Life Association, who run the nighttime shelter at the Hub. Midcoast Morning also spoke with Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krog about the situation. The Hub on Nicol Street is set to close at the end of March. On the city's end, what is the preparation like for that transition?
Unfortunately, the city has been working very hard for some time with the ministry to try and locate some other location. But of course, it's the same challenge that has always been faced. Most private landlords have no interest in renting for this kind of facility that delivers the kinds of services that they do. So we're getting close to the end of the month, and subject to me hearing something different from staff, we don't have a place.
Is it a correct understanding for people that if some suitable space is found, that essentially the same service will move and set up shop there and continue to run?
That would certainly be the hope. There is no question that the kinds of services needed by the folks who are on the street, the hundreds of our citizens who are on the streets, those services are needed. They're needed in communities across the province. The real issue here for council was this particular location in this particular neighbourhood, which has borne the brunt of the disorder that tends to follow these kinds of services, was simply too much for the neighbourhood, and I think council made a decision based on what the neighbourhood has had to endure, the level of street disorder, the threats, the violence, the human trafficking, all of the things that are often associated with delivering these kinds of services, sadly. We wrote to the minister as a council on February the 6th, asking the province to do more, anticipating that it will create a strain for other parts of the city potentially, because the need is not going to disappear.
Have you paid a visit to the Hub and spoken with the people working there or using the services?
I've been down to that facility in general, but not. I've had the odd conversation with folks who are involved, and as you know, council has had delegations from people who are active, all saying the same thing, and it is disturbing that we have a number of people who are using that facility, but again, the problems that arise are not so much what happens in it, it's what happens around it. When you hear the stories of families who have faced threats, violence, theft, garbage, litter, you cannot help but be sympathetic. And everybody says the same thing, including the overdose prevention site right beside City Hall. Essentially, it's we conduct ourselves in accordance with the rules and regulations, and what happens outside is not our responsibility. Well, the reality is, if you have a facility like this, it does attract, as I say, I'll kindly call it the social disorder that goes with it. Including just recently this week, another act of damage to one of our staffers' vehicles arising out of an altercation with some folks fighting in the parking lot.
If this closes at the end of March, what is the city going to be doing to prepare for the people who had been using this service, had been using it as maybe their bathroom for the day, and whatever else, who will now not have that space to go to?
I can't point to what I will call specifics because it'll depend on what the reaction is. Our suspicion is candidly that a number of folks simply won't go away. They will just hang around because that's where they've been hanging around for many months now. How how will we will react as a city will be dependent on, to some extent, how people react to the closure. And the good news is, as I say, that the winter months are ending, so the importance of the shelter is somewhat diminished. But as I've said it to the minister, given that this is not last year's crisis or the year before's crisis that simply continued, this is now many, many years, to the point where it has become normal to see a population in our streets in substantive numbers year after year who remain unhoused. I've said, and again, it would be hard to find a site, just throw up a great big tent. If you're sleeping outside at night, even a big tent with a cot and a place to go to the bathroom, a porta potty, is a lot better than just being on the street. And yet we probably won't do that as a society because we have standards, and when it comes to if you're putting up a building or something, you've got code requirements, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I'm at the point where I wouldn't say I'm feeling defeated, but I think I'm starting to say, since we're not going to get the perfect, then maybe we should do the good. Don't let the pursuit of the perfect stand in the way of doing the good, which is a line I've used before on your station, Obama's line. It's probably time to talk about something like that, because...
Well, to that point, speaking with people at the hub, both using the service and working at the service, their suspicion was, following its closure, there would probably be an uptick in people staying in tents around public spaces in and around the downtown and South End area. How do you anticipate, if that happens, that the city will respond to that?
Well, as it is now, we have where encampments have started to grow in substantive number, we've had to close them as best we can. And to some extent, neighborhoods, if there's not too much trouble going on, not too much garbage, litter, fires, etc., neighborhoods have tended to perhaps ignore them. But I need to remind everybody that when council came into office in 2018, and many of us who were elected then are still here, that was at the time this previous council had obtained the order closing the largest tent city in Canada. And for very good reason. The social disorder, the crime, the theft, the human trafficking was horrendous. Dispersing the population, created a number of other encampments, and the city's tried to keep a lid on it before they become dangerous. We've certainly had issues with fire and social disorder in various neighborhoods. We can't control this perfectly, though, and we are restricted in what we can do. Our community safety officers, our bylaw officers, are not the police. There are jurisdictional issues, there are limits on what they can and cannot do, and there's also issues around private property versus public property. We don't get to go storming onto a piece of private property without some kind of process, coordination, etc. We know that the embankment to the mill stream, for instance, the millstone, a year or two ago, horrendous incidents there involving gun violence, theft, damage, social disorder in the neighborhood. You're looking at tens of thousands of dollars to clean up an encampment like that. You can't keep doing that forever, but you don't want to let them grow to the point where that becomes the issue.
Is there dialogue between the city and the South End Community Association specifically about the closure and what's expected to happen after and the response?
Our staff are, meeting with everybody on a fairly constant basis. I don't mean daily necessarily, but there's a great deal of communication. And I think the South End Community Association came because they are a compassionate group by and large. The conclusion that notwithstanding all the logical arguments, all the pain and suffering that will ensue if some services aren't available, they just feel it's somebody else's turn to bear the burden. At a certain point, you start to look out for yourself, and they are, but only after they have if you will, made a contribution and a sacrifice far beyond what others have.
So if a new site that the service providers say, hey, this would work for us, the landlord is willing to lease it, what would it take on the part of City Council to say, yes, this is acceptable, we will support this?
I can't speak for certain because we haven't debated it, but I think Council would be sympathetic to any viable possibility of delivering the services. The one change that's happened since Council voted is that the information is that as of March 5th, there are 51 people housed through the hub over time. Otherwise, the community context remains the same as we outlined in our letter to the Minister on February the 6th. Providing these essential daytime services as well as the nighttime shelter was important and remains important. I think that folks will recall from the debate at Council, the concept was that by March 31st we would be past the winter weather where the need was even and always has been greater. Remarkably, as I understand it, both Victoria and Nanaimo have essentially had no measurable snowfall this year, so it's been a very mild winter, which has been very, very lucky for the city, but most particularly for those who are unhoused.
Mayor Krog, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
Thank you, and as always, I appreciate bringing more attention to this story. As I have said over and over again, this is the issue that dominates the communication with Council, apart from the odd flare-up over some particular issue, like the cancellation of the Banca's performance at the Port Theatre. But this remains the dominant issue, the concern of people, and it reflects well in the community in the sense that people do care and they want it solved and fixed. It's just that there is a growing sense that we're not moving forward at either the pace that is needed or merited. And we have to give everybody hope, not just the people in the streets, but the people who are impacted by the street disorder.
Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krog speaking about the impending closure of the Hub Drop-In Center on Nicol Street. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, you can email us at news@chly.ca. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
This program gives thanks to the Nanaimo First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.